The Esler family have farmed in the tabletop area for 3 generations. Joe Esler farms a portion of the original family property on the eastern side of Budginigi and is currently revegetating Little Budginigi. Joe shares some of his family's experiences of farming and the tabletop community over the years. Budginigi can also be pronounced Budginigi.
The early history of tabletop area was when it was obviously settled by Robert Brown in Albury, but then as people came through, you had the Mitchells came through, which took large holdings in this area and basically had all the land between Albury and Holbrook and out to Walla pretty much. I can't remember the exact acreage, but it was large holding, and they were a very big producer of cattle and sheep and horses, and even used to export horses to England at one stage for racing, and obviously were very wealthy in their day. Hence the fact that we had a railway station at Tabletop, and I believe that the railway station at one stage put out the biggest amount of produce into Sydney in a regional area for 1 year back in the early century. Yeah, but that was then cut up to the Mitchell's Sons, which became Mullinjandra Station, Wamargama Station, and various bits sold off. In the First World War it was further subdivided for soldier settlers from the First World War, and then again in the Second World War it was subdivided down further, down into basically parcels of 500 acres, which brings it to where my father came in with his mother leasing this place, which at the time was about 300 acres. Called Glen Lee, which was just a subdivision of Tabletop Station, and they leased that and then converted the lease to occupational tenancy back in the early 60s, and fought the New South Wales Lands Department for years for the right to stay on it, because at the time soldier settlers were trying to get compensated for losing land from the building of Lake Hume and the raising of Lake Hume to its present level. One of the neighbouring farmers who was a soldier settler went into bat and explained to the Lands Court that they had already been compensated when they got their parcels of land, knowing that part of their parcels were going to be flooded, and so therefore they had no real right to it. And eventually that's what transpired. We got to keep it as occupational tenancy, and eventually bought it outright in 1976, I believe. Since then we've owned it, and we increased it to about 500 acres, and it's now decreased on my share of it down to 230 acres presently. I remember this property in the early 70s as a 4 and 5 year old getting around here. The paddock right behind us here, which is completely cleared, was basically just tree stumps. It was just tree stumps and wood everywhere, and you could literally walk around and belt foxes on the head because there's so many of them, and rabbits. It was just covered in it. Matter of fact, I crashed my first tractor when I was 4, just 150 metres from here. Yeah.
When you were 4?
When I was 4, sitting in the seat, and actually the tractor is sitting just over there now. Yeah. With my dad on the back feeding our grain, and I'm on the front supposedly steering at 4 years of age. The tree breaks and things that you see around here were done by me. Some of them were done by my dad probably 25 years ago. Standard iron barks as you come in, he put those in, and some trees down the bottom. All these other tree breaks here were done by me, and along here, and all this new stuff, which I got funding from I think it was Albury Conservation Company through Sam Nedra to do the hill here. So yeah, that's been a bit of an aim, is to destock this small hill and retree it. These two hills, Big Budginigi and Little Budginigi, which is what these are, were both used for fill for the road when the lake was raised to its present level. They had to move the highway from around at Mullinjandra Creek around the end of what the new lake was going to be and into Albury, which is the present highway, pretty much, apart from where it's been bypassed. But everything you see here, this has all been stripped of its topsoil, and for instance, where those rocks are there's a crater in the ground, and that's from dynamite. That's where they've dynamited the ground. Matter of fact, we just found a shovel the other day laying here that was from that period in the 50s. It's still here from them working the ground here. So consequently, there's no topsoil here at all. Yeah, and on any of this, on these hills here. My parents had 8 children in a space of 10 years, so we're all reasonably close age together. Everybody worked on the farm, you know, as you did in those days. Went to the local school. We basically all worked here until we left and got jobs, with me coming back in and buying the place, farming it as a sideline ever since. Tabletop School. Well, Tabletop School, when I started in 1973, there was 16 kids in the school, and of those 16, my brothers and sisters made up 6 of them, so we had fair sway in the school. Yeah. And, but yeah, it was just a single room school. I think the only electrical equipment in the whole school was an air conditioner, which was stolen the year before I got there, and they replaced it, and so we had another one there. They had an air conditioner in there, the old evaporative, and a radio, and that was it. Or maybe a kettle. I think that was it for electrical equipment. Outside long drop toilets with snakes in them, and yeah, that was about as far as the equipment went. Yeah, it was very basic. From my understanding of him and Hovell's travels through here, they never actually came up on Big Budginigi Mount, even though it's a prominent feature in the landscape. Apparently they walked through somewhere down towards Mullinjandra Creek, towards what is now Albury. I think they crossed over somewhere north of Albury there, but yeah, somewhere in the actual lake bed itself now. So I don't think they ever came up onto these hills as such. They probably surveyed the country from the other hills further north of here, and maybe Tabletop Mountain. My dad actually went to primary school at St John's Orphanage, and he lived in a house just near there off Elizabeth Mitchell Drive called Noola, which is one of the old remaining houses there. We've still got photos of him going to school at St John's Orphanage on a horse with his 2 sisters. His sister's still alive in Albury. So he went there, I think, for 3 or 4 years, until they put him into Christian Brothers College in Albury. Back in those days, yeah, I think there was orphanage kids there then. Yeah, it really didn't change a lot over the years. I was only talking to my auntie about that the other day. She went there too, and she was talking about you know, where the graveyard and everything was, and the fact that they built an air raid shelter there. There is actually an air raid shelter underground there, yeah, which he reckons most of them wouldn't even know. And they used to actually practice air raid drills, because at the time, World War II, they didn't know whether they were going to be bombed. Like, everybody was, you know, yeah, scared. But she reckons that was there for years, and it's probably just been filled in and still there. We used to actually go to church there when I was a pre-teen, I suppose. And by then it had converted over to Guadalupe House, which was intellectually affected men, mostly. I don't think there was any women there. But I can remember in early years, like quite a few kids we went to school with were from the orphanage. Yeah. And they used to go out and stay with families. I'm trying to remember whether we ever had any come out here. I'd be surprised if we didn't. Yeah, I just don't. It was a little bit before my time, but my sisters would know. We're just landlocked by the lake, so anything this side of the lake is pretty much just real estate. Like, its main value is real estate. There's no two ways about it. We've known that for the last 30 years. But it's, you know, obviously we still farm it to some degree. It's been since I was a child, this has been chopped up a lot. Most of the farms around here have been turned into real estate, Carisbrook. This place hasn't yet, probably simply because it got sold on to me and I was away, so I've been away for a long time, so yeah, I haven't bothered to do any further subdivision. But yeah, that's the reality of it here. Whereas further out, it's all getting aggregated into bigger parcels, so they're all buying each other out and going bigger, just for economy of scale. But yeah, people will try with boutique things. I actually converted this from first cross sheep to Damara sheep, simply to do an enterprise that was a bit easier to handle while working off farm, and yeah, something that was a bit different, which worked for a while. And yeah, I wouldn't say no to doing something like that again if I had the time. when I've got the time. Running large blacks and saddleback pigs here for a while. Yeah, I've had a crack at a few things. Just to try something different. I think we'll just enjoy living on here. In the earlier years we had the water up here in summer, which these days, because of Dartmouth Dam, the lake doesn't stay full in summer anymore. It's unusual for it to be this full this late into summer. By now the irrigation's usually already taken it. But yeah, when we were kids it was always full. We used to actually just leave our ski boat in the creek over here and just put fuel in it and go skiing whenever we wanted, which we can't do anymore, unfortunately. But when the lake was down, yeah, we built a speedway track and several motocross tracks, and we've had I think we built the first motocross track down there when I was 12. Me and the neighbours' kids built that with front-end loaders and tractors at 12 years of age. Originally as a BMX track, and then we worked out that was too much hard work, so in came the motorbikes. And believe it or not, it's actually still there. We just built it up last year and out there cutting laps on it only months ago.